and welcome back. I'm your host, Luciana Cordero, and today I'll be talking to Brandon Temple about his experience as a fighter and what different things we can expect from the Battle of Tampa Bay. Hi, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for inviting me on here. It's great to be talking to y'all.
So, I wanted to start off by talking to you a little bit about your origin story as a fighter. How did you start competing, and what made you get into the sport?
So I started competing my sophomore year of high school. My electrical teacher, Daniel Sammons, who's also my coach at the moment, he, after a lot of convincing, finally got me into his dojo in the summer of my sophomore year, 2 years ago. He started teaching us jujitsu, and eventually we fell in with taekwondo. From there, we learned things like combat taekwondo, then kickboxing, then MMA. My journey in jiu-jitsu started 2 years ago. I've done a couple competitions. It was a rocky start, but my love for it never died off, and neither did my love for MMA.
Great, and you just mentioned that it was a rocky start. How would you say that it was rocky?
Well, I was kind of a musclehead. I mean, I was always this big guy. I did weightlifting. I was always throwing my muscles around with other guys in my classes. So going from being all tight and strong and trying to throw people around to something where it's all technique, it's all being fluid, it's all just falling into this concept. It was a lot of me getting tapped out and put to the ground by people half my size. And I mean, I'll tell you right now, I've always had a bit of an ego, and it hurt me a little bit. It did, but I've learned a lot, and it's taught me a lot of really good lessons. And I've learned a lot of great stuff from not only him but my peers. So I say my fighting style has progressed a lot from being muscly to taking people out half my size just with technique.
And what was it like going through that process? Like from the just muscles mentality to this whole technique, and like I guess it has to do a lot more with like the psychological aspect, like thinking through it. How has that been?
Frustrating. In an art like jiu-jitsu, it's hard to, be able to learn one thing and be able to apply it instantly. It's a lot of repetition, a lot of failing, and a lot of successes too. Um, but yes, frustrating. It was difficult, and it probably took me a year and a half to be able to apply the techniques like I do now, to be able to allow it to fall in, to allow it to be fluid. It took a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. Like I said, it was a year and a half of constantly going 2 to 3 times a week before I started really getting to the point where I could start applying it in competitions.
And what was it like when you were at the times where you just weren't feeling your best, or when you fell down or lost? How did you get back up?
Peer pressure. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of peer pressure. But I've always had people around me to motivate me, not just my coach, but also my friends who were blue belts, who have been there, done that, were there 2 years before I got there. They pushed me a lot. We trained in the dojo outside of it, and we became friends, and we've been friends for almost 3 years, almost 3 years now. And I've not only have they taught me a lot, I've learned. Well, of course I've learned, but they became more than just peers. Did become my friends, and I took a lot of what they said to heart with getting me in there and getting me out of this state of mind where I just want to quit and stop. So just having people to push you, that's how I did it.
Yeah, I've been able to talk to a few of the other fighters, and they said, or they mentioned a lot, that it felt like they were at home when they were fighting, and that part of it was the community that feels kind of like a family. Would you agree with that?
I mean, when you've been doing something for so long with people who have the same interests as you, when you do it with people who love it, it's not just a home, it's a family. It really is. And there's people I still talk to that I haven't even seen in years. just because we love fighting, we love the martial arts, and we love the aspects of self growth. And it's a home, and it's also a family.
Yeah, and what is it
It
of
really is.
martial arts that you like so much?
Um, it came. I mean, in a lot of ways, it did come natural. I've always been an athletic kid. I've always, I have a really hard time getting hurt, getting injured. Now, you'd be surprised how little bones I broke in my life, and it's I mean, I didn't like it too much at first. It was definitely weird. I was afraid that it was going to be one of those washed out karate type style dojos, one of those environments. So great, you broke the board, you're ready to fight. No, I was worried it was going to be that, but when I realized that it really is about becoming a better version of yourself, learning real skills that you can use inside and outside competitions. Um, I think that's the biggest part about what caused me to like it so much.
And what would
My
you
ability
say?
to do it and what it taught me.
Yeah, what would you say are some of those like crucial skills that you've learned from this sport?
Confidence is a big one. Confidence. There's not a single person who walks by me who I fear now. I mean, I used to walk around like in middle school. I was always a small, skinny kid. I was always afraid to, push somebody's buttons in the wrong way and get hurt. But I mean, of course, I don't bother people too much. But if I ever did, it's not something I have to worry about. It's great confidence that it's given me. It's shown me that there is a lot. There's a lot more to do than just talk your way out of situations. And if worse comes to worse and you can't do that, I mean, it gives me the confidence, and it it teaches me, I can keep myself safe if I'm ever put in a bad situation. It's hard to list specific skills, but other than that,
Yeah, and I also was wondering, what's like the best piece of advice that someone has given you, either like a mentor or just like peers, about like fighting?
best piece of advice. That's the thing. You get a lot of really good pieces of advice from coaches who are experienced and peers who are. Best piece of advice I've ever been given. I'd say that people, whenever you're training with somebody or training to fight against somebody, they're in the same boat as you. My opponent is in the same boat of he doesn't know anything about me. I don't know a lot about him. He doesn't know what he's going up against. Neither do I. I don't know how hard he trains. He doesn't know how hard I train. The best advice is to know that, yeah, they could be working harder than you, but at the same time, you could be doing so much more than them. And not knowing that line of if you're working harder or not is one of the best motivations that you can have. I mean, so what if you overtrain? You put in that work and now you are where you want to be. Best piece of motivation is that they are in the same boat as you.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And now that the Battle of Tampa Bay is coming up, like you mentioned, there's a lot of preparing that you have to do to be able to fight in general, let alone like be in a competition. How have you been preparing for this fight?
Well, of course, training 2, 3 days a week, balancing high school, college, and a job makes that really difficult. But I do try at least 2 days a week, sometimes three, working out, gaining as much muscle as I can, because sometimes I've seen my opponent. He's a pretty well built guy, and you can't always beat muscle with skill. Not always, and it definitely helps to have a little bit of muscle backing you up. So of course, I'm training my technique. I'm training my muscles, my body, and we all hate it. But yeah, I'm doing a little bit of cardio here and there.
Yeah,
I hate it, but you have to.
yeah, you always have to. So also, like, what expectations do you have now of the fight?
Patience. I've actually have met the guy in person. I have my first tournament style MMA match. It wasn't an amateur fight. He was there. I actually did watch him fight one time. That's all I know about him. He's a great guy, and I know there's going to be a lot of sportsmanship. Me and him are experienced in these competitions and competing. I think it's going to be great. Whether or not we lose, I feel like it's going to be a win-win for everybody. I really do. If I lose, I'll come out knowing that I can do better. I'll come out knowing people who can train me to be better, who can teach me to be better, who can show me where I failed.
Yeah, and what would you say that we could expect as the audience of the Battle of Tampa Bay?
It's probably going to be a lot of grappling between me and him. I know he's a wrestler. I know he likes those double legs. I've seen a fight or two of his. So there could be a lot of grappling. Who knows? Who knows? He's a pretty well-built guy, so I might have to keep my distance. Maybe I'll have to keep it grappling just so I don't get KO'd in one hit. So it could be a cat fight. It really could.
And yeah, and kind of just like to close off, I wanted to ask you if you have a piece of advice for people who are trying to get into fighting, what would you say to them as you have a little bit more of experience?
The hardest thing about fighting is overcoming the fear of hitting somebody else. Me personally, that's what it was. I never wanted to hurt people. I hated it. So the most important piece of advice I can give for somebody who wants to get into fighting is remember, it's just a sport. It's no different than football or soccer or baseball. You're there to have fun. You're there to be a better version of yourself, whether or not you do it because you want to be a great fighter or because you want to get in shape. You're there to have fun. Other people are too. Don't be scared. You will not be judged. The fighting community is one of the most open community to newcomers, and I think it's probably one of the best sports to get into for somebody who's never done a sport.
Great. Thank you so much, Brandon. It was very insightful to know a little bit more about you and about the fight as well. So yeah, I guess we'll see you on May 10th fighting in the Battle of Tampa Bay.
All right. Hopefully I can see y'all too.